My name is Amy Brown. I'm 28, and the night my brother decided I was his emergency fund, he did it over text. You'll cover my share of rent. No greeting, no context, just a sentence that felt like a sticky note slapped on my forehead. At first, I stared at it like it might reorganize itself into a joke I'd missed. Then I noticed how quiet the apartment was. The hallway felt longer than usual as I walked toward his room. The door stood half open, the way you leave something when you want it to look accidental. Inside, a perfectly cleared absence. No mattress, no desk, no shirts hanging like tired flags in the closet. He didn't leave. He evacuated. While I worked a late shift, he peeled himself out of the lease like a sticker. My reply was muscle memory. Keep dreaming. 5 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Dad. All caps. No punctuation. Rage condensed into a single line. You aren't family unless you cover his $100,000 loan. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. Something quieter happened, like a click behind the ribs. I sat on the edge of our couch and realized I had finally arrived at the end of the hallway I'd been walking down for years, the one lined with framed moments they used as toll gates. Remember when we drove you to practice? Remember the birthday cake? Remember therapy at 16? Pay the fee. Keep walking. Keep. I set the phone face down and opened my banking app. The joint credit card Dad talked me into co-signing last year. Frozen. The backup debit card my mom liked to borrow in emergencies. Locked. The autopays, the linked accounts, the innocent little subscriptions that quietly fed everyone but me, untied. I called the electric company. My brother's name, removed. Storage unit portal. My name was on the lease. New access code, new security question. I didn't burn anything down. I just turned off the lights they'd been pretending were free. For a second, I stared at my reflection in the dark TV screen. I looked calm, too calm, the kind of calm that only arrives when you're done auditioning for kindness you never get. The first voicemail hit before I reached the kitchen. Then another. Then 10 more. My phone buzzed like a hornet's nest I had no intention of touching. I boiled water for tea I didn't even like and waited for the world to end. It didn't. It just got loud. I thought of my brother's room again. The deliberate vacancy. The way he'd left only the lease and the bills, like bones after a feast. Rent was $2,400. We had 6 months left. He still owed me utilities from 2 weeks ago, but those were small numbers compared to the one my father had thrown at me like a brick through a window. $100,000. Not a debt I'd incurred, not a loan I'd co-signed, a mess they'd cooked while inviting me only to the cleanup. My phone pinged with a new message from Dad. Fewer caps, same sentiment. We help each other in this family. He's your brother. Once, that line would have worked on me like a tranquilizer. Not tonight. I walked to my bedroom and pulled out a shoebox of paperwork I used to think proved I was responsible. Receipts, contracts, a neatly clipped copy of the lease, even a photo of us on move-in day with forced smiles and a sagging couch between us. Back then, I thought my reliability would win me respect. I didn't realize it just made me dependable infrastructure. Who thanks the foundation? You only notice it when it cracks. At 9:03 p.m., I sent one email to our landlord. Hi, this is Amy Brown in 4B. My brother has vacated without notice. I'm willing to cover the next 2 months in full if we can terminate early. I can provide evidence of abandonment. He replied at 9:48 p.m., as if he'd been waiting for permission to be reasonable. If the unit is emptied and clean by month's end, we can end the lease. I'll send a termination addendum. I exhaled. Not relief, direction. The voicemails evolved. My brother oscillated between fake confusion and weaponized helplessness. Amy, you don't understand how startups work. Amy, you're ruining my credit. Amy, family doesn't do this. Family doesn't do what, exactly? Refuse to be a drip line into your drought? I didn't call back. At 10:22 p.m., my phone rang with a blocked number. I answered on reflex, thinking it might be work. Dad. He didn't yell. He adopted the voice, the one that sounded like a lullaby with a hook inside it. Sweetheart, I overreacted. We're stressed. Your brother's under pressure. We're all under pressure. I'm proud of you. We can fix this. Together. I let him talk until he ran out of room to circle me. Then I asked one question. Who's in the family group chat? Silence, like someone cut the audio. Then, that's not important. It was the most important thing he'd said all night. I hung up. The gift basket arrived the next morning. Cheeses, candles, teas I don't drink. No note. Only a wrinkled receipt tucked underneath, charged to the joint card I'd frozen. Declined. A silent comedy. The purchase intended to atone for betrayal paid for by the betrayed. By noon, a cousin texted to ask if I was really upset about something so small. Small, like a $100,000 loan I didn't take or a room emptied in the dark. Small, like being told love was contingent on funding a failure. I stood by the window and watched the street. A dad lifted a toddler from a car seat. The kid's laugh cut through the glass. Clear, uncomplicated. I remembered being that light once, before I learned that affection in our house had a ledger. I opened my laptop and created 3 folders. Keep, return, theirs. I labeled boxes. Kitchenware that was mine went into keep. Anything my brother could claim, return. The rest, theirs. To be photographed and inventoried so no one could accuse me of theft. It wasn't pettiness, it was proof. The kind that stops arguments before they dress up as concern. Then I made myself a promise I could actually keep. No more speeches, no more defending, only decisions. At 2:07 p.m., I drafted a list called Quiet Blackout. Freeze, lock, unlink. Done. Landlord exit plan, in motion. Storage unit, code changed. Photos to be sent with a 10-day transfer deadline. Utilities, my name, my control. No more borrowed stability. I didn't feel triumphant, I felt awake. By evening, the messages took on a new flavor. Forgiveness requests, written like arrest warrants. After everything we did for you, you're making a scene. We can't heal if you shut us out. Healing had become their favorite word for access. I placed my phone face down again. The apartment hummed with a kind of clean silence I didn't recognize. Not loneliness, space. I brewed tea I still didn't like and let the kettle's steady whistle mark the start of a new calendar. Not one where I became the villain. One where I stopped auditioning for a role they'd written for their convenience. Later, when the night got quiet enough to hear my own pulse, I caught my reflection in the oven door. I looked like a woman I'd respect if I met her at work. Direct, organized, tired but unflinching. The thought surprised me. Maybe the person I kept trying to be for them wasn't someone I liked. I turned off the kitchen light and let the dark hold me for a second longer than usual. Tomorrow I'd need help. Truth, context, a mirror that wouldn't lie to me. I knew exactly who to call. Uncle Rob always told the truth, even when it made the room uncomfortable. And I was done being the only one willing to sit in discomfort. The next morning, I called Uncle Rob. He picked up on the second ring, voice calm as always, that quiet tone of someone who's seen too many family fires to flinch at smoke. "Amy, you okay?" I told him everything. The text, the loan, the silent move out. Every detail that had unraveled overnight. He didn't interrupt once, just let the words land like puzzle pieces he already knew the picture to. When I finally ran out of breath, there was a long pause. "Do you want to know," he asked carefully, "what your family really says when you're not around?" My stomach sank. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to stay half blind in the comfort of denial, but I'd already learned what silence cost. "Tell me," he sighed. "Your mom and dad, they've been talking like this for a while. At your cousin's wedding, a few months back, your mom was laughing to Aunt Carla about how Amy still thinks she's better than everyone just because she pays her own bills." I swallowed hard. He continued. "Then your dad said, if she ever stops helping, she'll learn who her family really is. They think the money you earn, the life you've built, is something you owe them for tolerating you as a teenager." It hit like a punch in slow motion. All the times they'd reminded me of things I should be grateful for suddenly took on a new shape. Grateful they didn't give up on me. Grateful they took me back after therapy. Grateful they still talked to me after I moved out. They'd rewritten every act of basic decency into a debt I was meant to pay forever. But Rob wasn't done. "And there's something else," he said. "There's a group chat, one you're not in. Your dad, your mom, your brother, a few cousins. They call it the family core. It's where they talk about money. Yours, mostly." My pulse spiked. "Mine?" "Yes. After you got your promotion last year, your mom said they could finally lean on Amy a little more. They planned who could ask you for what. Small amounts first, just to keep it natural. They even joked that you'd never say no because you need to feel useful. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I just stared at the mug in my hand, watching steam curl away like it was escaping, too. Uncle Rob, I whispered, how long have you known? He hesitated. I saw the chat once. Your mom left her phone open at a barbecue. I didn't say anything then, but now, I think you need to hear it all. He was right. The truth wasn't cruel. The pretending had been. When the call ended, I didn't cry. I just sat in the stillness of the apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes and the echo of my own realization. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved the version that made their lives easier. By afternoon, I had a new kind of clarity. I emailed the landlord again, confirmed the early termination, and began sealing the boxes labeled Keep. Everything that was his, my brother's, I labeled with bright orange tape and stacked neatly by the door. A pile of evidence that I was cleaning my life with the precision they'd always mistaken for coldness. Then came the storage unit, the one with decades of family clutter, old furniture, Christmas decorations, and boxes labeled sentimental. My name was on the lease, not theirs. I changed the access code, took photos of every item, and sent one final email titled, "You have 10 days to transfer this lease. After that, it's no longer my responsibility." Simple, polite, unmistakable. When I hit send, I didn't feel spite. I felt air. That night, the messages poured in. A digital storm of guilt. Mom texted, "After all we've done for you?" My brother wrote, "You're really throwing away family over money?" Dad followed with a voice memo I didn't bother to open. Then, a new number appeared. Aunt Carla. "Amy, I don't know what's gotten into you, but your parents are worried sick. You should call them. They said you've been acting strange." Acting strange. That was their language for acting free. I turned off my phone. The glow of the screen faded, but the thoughts didn't. Every favor I'd done, every bill I'd quietly covered, every emergency they'd turned into my problem, all replayed like film footage from a crime I hadn't realized I was complicit in. I lay in bed that night listening to the hum of the fridge, the soft thud of the neighbor's footsteps upstairs. Ordinary sounds, peaceful sounds. Sounds I'd never noticed before because chaos had always filled the silence first. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was abandoning them. I felt like I was finally walking toward myself. Still, a small voice whispered, "They won't stop here. Because people who depend on your guilt don't just fade when you say no. They find new ways to make you useful." And that whisper wasn't wrong. By the next morning, I'd learned just how creative my family could be when they lost access to their favorite resource, me. By the next morning, the shift had started. It began with silence, the kind that isn't peaceful, but plotting. No calls, no texts, just nothing. That's how I knew they were regrouping. Then, slowly, the messages started again, but this time they wore masks. "Mom, good morning, sweetheart. Let's talk when you're calmer." "Dad, your brother didn't mean to upset you. He's just under a lot of pressure right now." "My brother, I didn't think you'd freak out like this. I thought you had my back." Not one of them said sorry. Not one admitted what they'd done. They were rewriting the script in real time, turning my boundaries into overreactions. I muted the thread. By afternoon, small cracks started showing. Mom texted again, asking why her Netflix account wasn't working. Dad emailed about the electric bill suddenly being overdue. Even the vet called. Apparently, the family dog's reminder notice had bounced because I'd been the one paying for it all along. Every disconnected bill, every frozen account, every declined subscription was a ripple of realization for them. They didn't know how much I'd been holding up. By evening, my brother sent a new message, a Venmo request. 1,000, your half of the family vacation. I almost laughed. They were still planning on going to Maui. The same trip they told me I was too busy for months ago. I'd been excluded from the group chat about flights, but they'd apparently still budgeted my contribution. So I didn't decline. I didn't accept. I just commented on the request with one line. "Ask the family group chat." 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. Uncle Rob. He sounded tired, voice low, like he'd just stepped outside to breathe. "I don't know what you did, Amy," he said, "but your mom's pacing the kitchen like she's preparing for war." I let out a dry laugh. "They're mad the gravy train took the wrong exit." He didn't laugh back. "They were about to book the hotel for Maui. Your dad realized too late it was under your corporate discount, non-refundable." I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. In that silence, I felt something strange. Satisfaction, but not revenge. Proof. For the first time, they were learning what life looked like without my quiet reliability, and it terrified them. The next morning, Mom sent me a photo of our family's Sunday dinner table. Everyone smiling, holding hands, the caption reading, "Family above everything." No text, no explanation, just the picture, like a billboard for guilt. I stared at it for a while, then opened the camera roll on my phone. Scrolled through old photos, birthdays, holidays where I worked overtime so they could afford gifts they never thanked me for. Every smile looked rehearsed. Every family memory had a price tag I'd quietly paid. That night, I left the family group chat. No dramatic announcement, no goodbye, just leave group. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing again. Aunt Carla. Wow, really mature, Amy. Cousin Jill. You're making a big deal out of nothing. My brother. You ruined the chat. Mom's crying. Mom's crying. Not because she missed me, but because I stopped playing my part. I muted them all. Over the next few days, the guilt campaign escalated. Every message dripping with emotional bait. Dad sent long paragraphs about forgiveness and unity. Mom sent a prayer quote from Pinterest about holding on to family no matter what. My brother sent a voice note that started with fake sobs and ended with, "You're destroying everything Dad built." I didn't reply, but while I was quiet, I was also watching and documenting. Screenshots, bank records, rent receipts, emails, everything I'd need if this ever turned legal. Because if they'd use emotional blackmail, financial blackmail wasn't far behind. Then, just when I thought the storm was settling, a new kind of wind hit. At 10:07 p.m. on a Wednesday, an unknown number lit up my screen. I almost ignored it. But something, instinct, fate, I don't know, told me to pick up. "Amy, it's Lena." It took me a second to recognize the voice. Lena was my old boss. Sharp, professional, no nonsense. We hadn't spoken since I switched jobs last year. "Hey, Lena, what's up?" She hesitated, and that silence made my stomach drop. "I ran into your dad at a charity event tonight," she said carefully. "He introduced himself, mentioned you work for us, then said you were going through something personal and might be stepping away soon." My chest tightened. "He said what?" "Yeah, he made it sound like you're unstable, like you might not be keeping up at work." There it was, the new angle. If they couldn't guilt me financially, they'd sabotage my reputation instead. Lena sighed. "I didn't believe him, Amy. I know how solid you are, but I thought you should know." I thanked her, voice steady even as my pulse raced. When the call ended, I sat there, staring at the wall. They weren't just trying to pull me back in, they were trying to destroy what I'd built outside their control. The family that preached loyalty was now quietly dismantling my credibility. And if I knew my father, this wasn't impulsive, this was strategic. But he'd made one mistake. He'd forgotten that I'd once helped him organize his files, and that he'd never changed his old laptop's password. And that old laptop was still in the hall closet. The laptop was buried under a blanket in the hall closet, a dusty silver fossil from the year my dad asked me to help him organize some business records. Back then, I thought it was bonding. Now I realized it was access. The password was the same as it had always been. My birthday. Predictable. The screen flickered on, the faint hum filling the silence. Folders everywhere. Taxes, loans, receipts, contracts. It was like opening the skeleton of our family. At first, I didn't know what I was looking for. Then I remembered his message. "You aren't family unless you cover his $100,000 loan." So I searched loan. The results were instant. Loan agreement final.pdf. I clicked. There it was. A $100,000 loan, signed by my brother, and co-signed by my father. Collateral, the family house and car. Due dates highlighted in yellow. Payment history, 2 missed installments. A bold red note at the bottom. Final notice, foreclosure imminent. I scrolled further, finding an email chain between my dad and a private lender. "My daughter's financially stable," one line read. "We're confident she'll assist if necessary." My throat tightened. I wasn't a daughter in that sentence. I was a safety net, a bargaining chip. Then I found something worse, a draft document titled Family Restructure Plan. It was basically a spreadsheet mapping out which bills could be shifted to me long-term. Rent, storage, insurance, even grandma's prescriptions. In one column, Amy, likely to agree if framed as temporary. That's when my hands started shaking. I took screenshots. All of it. The loan documents, the emails, the spreadsheet. I saved copies to a flash drive and uploaded them to the cloud. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd play documented. Then I opened a new email. To Dad. Subject, Selena. No body text, just that one word. The name of his lender, printed across every file. He'd know what it meant. The reply came 4 hours later, 8 long paragraphs. He didn't deny it, he didn't explain it. He just blamed stress, used words like family, pressure, love. Not once did he mention the loan. He knew I knew, and that was enough. By the next evening, my phone buzzed again. Uncle Rob. His voice was low, like he'd just walked out of a storm. Amy, I told them. I froze. Told them what? That you found the files. That Lena called you. That you know everything. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Why? Because they were spinning it. Your dad said you were hacking into his stuff. Your mom said you were paranoid. They were turning this into another Amy's overreacting story. I wasn't going to let them. He was quiet for a beat, then added, You should have heard the room go silent. I could almost picture it. The dining table, the cheap wine, the half-eaten dinner. The pause when lies finally lose oxygen. Uncle Rob said, Your dad looked like someone pulled the ground out from under him. Your mom tried to say it's a misunderstanding. Your brother left. I think they realized you're done playing nice. I didn't respond right away, because for the first time I wasn't angry. I was steady. Like the calm after a structure collapses, once you know where the rubble lands, you stop flinching. That weekend, the calls stopped. Not out of peace, out of panic. They knew I had the leverage now. On Tuesday, Mom sent a long email. The subject line read, Healing and Communication. It began with, Dear Amy, we all make mistakes. Families break apart when people hold grudges. I've drafted a message we could send together to the rest of the family. Attached was a screenshot of a text she'd written but hadn't sent. I think we owe Amy an apology. Not we owe her, but I think. She wanted credit for thinking about doing the right thing. I didn't respond. 2 days later, a handwritten letter arrived. My dad's. The paper smelled like the cologne he'd always worn. Strong, synthetic, trying too hard to be important. He wrote about nostalgia, forgiveness, the importance of family. He said he never meant to hurt me. Then ended with, Family is about forgiveness, Amy. Don't let pride make you forget that. Pride. That's what they always called my boundaries. That night, I sat at my desk with the letter in one hand and the flash drive in the other. And for the first time, I didn't feel torn between guilt and anger, just clarity. The next morning, I emailed the bank's collections department, attached the loan documents, asked them to confirm that I wasn't a cosigner, had never authorized financial responsibility. They replied within hours, Your name is not associated with this loan. Your records are clear. Thank you for your documentation. I stared at that sentence for a long time, the written proof that I didn't owe anyone anything. Then I got to work. I opened every box still sitting in the apartment, sorted what was mine, what was theirs, and what was garbage. I labeled the boxes with tape, stacked them neatly by the door. Then I went through my phone, one contact at a time. Blocked Dad, blocked Mom, blocked my brother, muted every cousin. Finally, I scrolled to the family core group chat, the one Uncle Rob told me about. I'd been added to it again at some point. The messages were still coming in. Endless arguments about who was to blame, who lost me, who owed whom. I typed 3 words. No, I won't. Then I hit send, left the group, and deleted the app. That night, Uncle Rob called again. It's about time you chose yourself, he said softly. You did the right thing, Amy. They'll spin it however they need to, but deep down, they know. I smiled, faint but real, then let them know in silence. I deleted the photos, the voicemails, the missed calls, not to forget, to clear space, space that belonged to me. For the first time in my life, quiet didn't mean danger. It meant freedom. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I cut them off. No calls, no emergency texts, no guilt-dipped apologies, just silence. And I protect it like oxygen. The first few weeks were strange. I'd reach for my phone whenever something funny happened at work, instinctively thinking to text my mom. Then I'd remember. That version of her only existed in my imagination. The real one would have turned the story into a guilt trip or a request for money. It took time to accept that absence could be healthier than presence. I moved into a small apartment downtown, one with peeling paint, a creaky floor, and no shared lease. But it was mine. Every bill I paid was mine. Every noise in the night was mine. I'd never realized how peaceful ownership could feel until it wasn't shared with entitlement. Work flourished. My boss, Lena, called me into her office 3 months after that charity event. "Amy," she said, smiling, "you handled that mess with more grace than most people twice your age. I wanted you to know we're promoting you to project lead." I should have felt pride, and I did, but mostly I felt relief. Relief that my father's rumor hadn't defined me. Relief that truth can survive lies when you stop defending yourself and just keep doing the work. Sometimes people at the office would ask why I don't talk about my family. I'd just smile and say, because some stories sound better once they end. I never told them the details, not about the texts, the loan, the lies. That chapter wasn't for pity, it was for peace. Every now and then, Uncle Rob would check in. Short, quiet calls. Never nosy. He never mentioned my parents unless I did. He just made sure I was eating, sleeping, living. One evening, he said something that stuck with me. "Amy, they're not mad you left. They're mad you proved they could survive without you, and that you can survive without them." I let the words sink in. He was right. My family's love had always come with conditions. Invisible contracts I never signed, but somehow obeyed. Now I was rewriting those terms. No debt, no guilt, no access. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar, my mother's. Inside was a single line. "We're sorry things turned out this way, but we're still your family." I folded it back into the envelope and put it in a drawer. I didn't rip it up. I didn't frame it. I just put it away. Some doors don't need slamming. They just need locking. That night I went for a walk. The city was glowing. Restaurants buzzing. People laughing over dinners that didn't cost emotional taxes. I stopped by a cafe and ordered chamomile tea, the kind I used to hate. It didn't taste better now, but it tasted like mine. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who thought family meant endurance, the one who mistook exploitation for love, silence for peace, and guilt for duty. If she could see me now, I think she'd finally breathe. Before heading home, I texted Uncle Rob a single message. "Thank you for being the only one who didn't treat me like an ATM." He replied minutes later, "You were never the problem, Amy. You were just the first to break the pattern." That night, I deleted my last saved voicemail from Dad. It wasn't out of anger, just housekeeping. Freedom, I've learned, isn't loud. It's quiet. It hums beneath your skin, in the small acts of self-respect that nobody claps for. It's opening your own front door and realizing that every inch of peace inside is paid for by you. Not bought, not borrowed, not begged. As I turned off the lights, I caught my reflection in the window again. That same calm woman from months ago, only this time her eyes didn't look tired. They looked free.